So today's daf is daf Chof Vav in Bava Kama. As again, we learned the third line of the page. We're seeing now different kinds of kal v'chomers that we need psukim to discount them. And here's another one. Velote shein v'regel chayavas b'shus hanisik. Shein v'regel, which means chayav b'shus hanisik. It says it be b'stei acher. Maybe they shouldn't be chayiv b'shus hanisik. L'chatzi nesik. Okay, they're chayiv, but they shouldn't be chatzi nesik. Why? Because b'chom keren. Look at the kavachim. Not keren b'shus haram chayivas. Even the keren b'shus haram, which is chayiv b'shus hanisik. Ein mishalem is el chatzi nesik. Again, keren which is chayiv b'shus haram, but b'shus haram chayivas b'shus hanisik. It's only chayiv chatzi nesik, according to the Rabban, not Rav Tarfon, right? That he pays chatzi nesik either way. Shein regel b'shus haram tur, which is potter, and it didn't b'shus hanisik misham chatzi nesik. It should also pay chatzi nesik, right? If keren, which pays chatzi nesik both b'shus haram and b'shus hayachid, right? It pays chatzi nesik, even though it's chayiv b'shus haram, so it has a stringency over shein regel, which are potter b'shus haram. So shein regel, which has less of a stringency, potter b'shus haram, should also only pay chatzi nesik b'shus hanisik. The pasuk says Yishalem, meitav sadeh, meitav karma, Yishalem. Yishalem is mashma, you got to make it a good payment, pay the entire thing. So again, a pasuk is needed to discount the kal v'chomer. Okay. Again, Amakra Yishalem, tashlumin ma'alya. It's got to be a good payment. Meitav sadeh, meitav karma, Yishalem, got to be a good payment. Okay, v'lo take keren b'shus haram chayiv. Maybe keren should not be chayiv b'shus haram, should be chayiv b'shus hanizak. Mikal v'chomer, mashin b'regel b'shus hanisik nesik shalem. Mashem Regel, which pays Nesek Shalom B'Shus Hanisik. B'Shus Haram Tur is totally potter. B'Shus Haram Keren B'Shus Hanisik only pays Chatzi Nesek, and it didn't B'Shus Haram Tur. So Keren should also be potter B'Shus Haram, right? Just like Shein Regel. Shein Regel Chayv Nesek Shalom B'Shus Hanisik. Yet B'Shus Haram they're potter. So Keren, which only pays Chatzi Nesek B'Shus Hanisik, should certainly be potter entirely B'Shus Haram. Rabbi Yochanan pasuk says. The pasuk says yechetzun, which is an extra pasuk, says Rashi. Pasuk already said b'chatzu es kaspo. What is the best net? And the pasuk goes on to say gam es hameis yechetzun. Split that up. Ein chatzi nesek chalok lo b'shus rabim b'shus yachid. They tell me that it's always half, whether it's b'shus rabim or b'shus yachid. The extra word teaches me that he always pays chatzi nesek, whether it's b'shus rabim or b'shus yachid. Here we come to a very difficult one. Now understand something. What is kofar? Pasuk says that if your animal is a mu'ed, right, in a shore mu'ed, if you have a shore nagachom mit mel shosham, the owner doesn't guard him, behemoth, she kills a human being, ashor yisakol v'gambal of yumas, the shore is stoned, and the owner also dies. Doesn't really mean dies, as the next pasuk goes on, kofer yushas alav. He should pay ransom, meaning the ransom, the value. It's machlok is the value, the masuk is the value, the nisik, but he pays the value of a human being to the family. Whatever is assessed on him pays nefesh. So when do you pay kofar? If your animal, which is a mu'ed, gores, that's the pasuk shot. That's the pasuk talks about. Imshor nagachu midbol shasham. It says v'chi yigach as isha isha v'meis. And if he was a shor mu'ed, so you kill the animal, shor yisakel, and the owner has to pay kofar. So when does he pay kofar? Only if his animal kills a human being. If his animal, which is a mu'ed, kills a human being. And the pasuk talk about goring. What about if he trampled him? We'll talk about that. That's going to be later on in today's daf. But here the Gemara raises an interesting question. Love you. Where's this question? Maybe a person who kills should also be chayiv in kofar. Why? Again, we have a strange kal v'chomer. A shore kills. What's the arbit varim? Sa ripu shevas and boshes, right? When a person does damage to somebody else, he pays nezik. Sa ripu shevas and boshes. Nezik is the damage, how the person has been devalued, depreciated. Tsar is the pain that he went through that has to be evaluated. Ripu is his doctor bills, hospital bills. Shevas is the time that he's off from work, and boshes, the shame that was involved. Okay, so that also, some of these things only apply if he intended it, but fine. But a person is chayiv in those things, not an animal. An animal only pays, if an animal does damage, you only pay for nezik, for the depreciation, for the devaluation of the person involved. So Adam chayiv b'kofer. Maybe a person should pay kofer when he kills mikal b'chomer. But the owner has to pay kofer if his animal killed somebody. Adam has to pay the other things. Then it didn't shouldn't be chayiv in kofer. That's the kal b'chomer. Now we're going to get to the problems with the kal b'chomer in a second. But the answer is on the pasuk says alav. What the pasuk says? When does he pay kofer? Only when it's assessed for him. In this case, when his animal killed. Alav adam. Only on the animal killing. On this case, shor mishalmin kofer, says Rashi. Now, what was the question in the first place? You may say, if a person kills somebody, he's chayiv misa, right? So where do you have that he should pay misa? He's chayiv misa and he should also pay kofer, should also pay ransom. Rashi says over here, Rashi says, "V'adam chayiv b'kofer." In the question, could go b'mezid lo asrbei. He did it on purpose, but there was no warning to him. They didn't warn him you're not allowed to kill. The less of I call you can't kill him. He didn't have him. Like there was no hasra. Below bargolas. It's not a question if he did it or not. The question is there was no hasra, so he's not chayiv, and he's also not chayiv golas. So from Rashi, it's mashma that the basic question I have is this: Kamlev Rabmine. We have a klal that if you have two punishments, let's say misa or malchus and money, you don't have to pay, right? If a classic case he had in Shabbos, a man throws a knife from Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah or vice versa, and on the way it went through and tore somebody's expensive shirt that cost $100, doesn't have to pay because he's chayiv misa. And Chizkiah said, Chizkiah learns there that makes no difference if he actually is chayiv misa or not. He might be potter because there was no Edom and Asra or whatever, but since it's a capital case, whether he's going to get the capital punishment or not, he's still coming out is there. And that's how Tosas learns over here. Tosas says the question over here is that he effectively be killed and he should pay. Why isn't it Kamar Ramine? Gemara doesn't talk here about Kamar Ramine. So I think the answer is normally we say Kamar Ramine. Here the question is, though, we have a Kal V'chomer against that. In other words, normally you say Kamar Ramine. If you have two punishments, a more severe one, like a capital one, or let's call it a corporal punishment of some sort, a bodily punishment, and a financial punishment. So the financial punishment falls away because of Kamar Ramine. It's learned out of Psukim. Several Psukim teach us that if there's no tragedy, if nobody's killed, then he pays. Mashma, if there is a tragedy, if somebody died, then he's potter. That's the concept of Kamar Ramine. There's another pasuk that teaches us that also that Kamar Ramine. But if the other question is maybe we don't say Kamar Ramine in this case. Maybe we have a Kal V'chomer telling you if your animal killed and you have to pay kofer, even though your animal doesn't even pay Arvid Varim. So a person that pays Arvid Varim should certainly have to pay the kofer, even if he is killed. Even if he's killed, that's how Tosas learns. Rashi lo says kagom b'meisav lo asrbei the less of bartov goes. He's not chayiv goes or that, and therefore you would say, in other words, he's trying to get around the problem. I think of kamler ramine. In other words, when he's but it could be, from Rashi it's mashma. He did it b'meisav lo asrbei the less of bartola. Okay, but if he would be a bartola, the Gemara would be esnet kasha. Maybe Rashi is going l'shitaso that says that you don't say kamar rabbanei in a case where you don't actually kill him, where he's not chayiv death. For example, if there was no Edom, there's no Asra, or he's not bargols for whatever reason, doesn't fit into the category of goals. Goals has to be a particular case of shogeg, not every case of accidental death is chayiv and goals. It's got to be under certain conditions, as we'll see also later on today. So Rashi seems to go l'shitaso that kamar rabbanei it's only if the guy's actually chayiv death. But Tosas says no. They say either way. Here the question seems to be you should be chayiv death and also have to pay. Okay, we got a pasuk teaching that that's not the case. But in the kasha, the Havmei seems to be going against our usual concept of kamler ramine. So the Gemara now says v'yeshor chayiv advar. Okay, maybe shor should also pay sari pushevas and boshes, even though the shor doesn't understand these things. He doesn't understand these payments. He understands he wants to do damage. But maybe he should be chayiv b'amakav ma'adam she'en chayiv b'kofer. A person who we've established does not pay kofer. Chayiv b'arvidvarim, b'arvidvarim shor shechayiv b'kofer, and then shechayiv b'arvidvarim. The pasuk says, "Ish ki etain mumba miso." If a man puts a blemish on his friend, on his colleague, v'lo shor b'miso. So again, it's ish b'miso, v'lo shor b'miso. So all these psukim, so all these cases where you would say a kal v'chomer are knocked off because of the various psukim. Iboilu.
So we're basically arguing that the Torah isn't logical.
Correct. That's always the issue. You ask that a lot.
Yeah.
Where's the logic in a lot of these things? Yeah.
But we go over it, one
Right,
item,
right.
next item, next
Right.
item.
The
next
pasuk
item.
tells us what the
Does it
halach
the
is.
same
Right.
answer?
Exactly. The Kal V'chomer is based on logic, and you can knock off the logic with a pasuk. That's all. The Torah tells us otherwise. Ibaylahu. Now here comes this question again. Let's go back to kofar. Where do you pay kofar? The pasuk says ki gachshor esisho isha. If he gores and the animal goes on, and he was a mu'aid and he killed, so the shore is killed, Besin of 23, right? Skila, and the owner has to pay kofar. It says Ba'avimus, but it goes on to means kofar. So that's only when the animal gored, or is it even if the animal did damage in some other fashion? For example, the Gemara is asking regel, a baby is in the chatzar nizik, and a man brought his shore into that chatzar, obviously without permission. But regel shadars lagavitin b'chatzar nizik in the chatzar nizik. Now regel is chai b'chatzar nizik, shame regel is chai b'chatzar nizik. But what? Okay, so we understand that if he killed the baby, if this animal trampled your bull trampled the baby in the chatzar nizik, he's chayiv skila, right? You have to kill him, right? The question over here is he didn't gore him, he trampled him. Regel. So you boil a regel should also go between b'chatzar and nizik mal should take over. Do you say, well, me did have a Karen? What's the difference if it's a regular Karen? Karen, keeping the trade the pluses in me since a Karen. How does an animal who gores, how does it become a mu'ay? By doing it 2-3 times. It says trade the plus, it means 2-3 times. That's his normal fashion. And once it's his normal fashion, the owner should have expected that if he takes him to chatzar nizek, he might kill somebody. So he should have known about it. Then he pays kofar. That's Karen. And Misham kofar. Hachanami loshna. Here it's no different also. Why? Because we learned that an animal to trample with his feet is always a mu'ay. That's his normal thing. He's not intention. He has no intention to do damage necessarily. He's just walking. That's what an animal does. Hachanami loshna. Just like Karen, if he does it 2-3 times, that's his normal fashion. Here too, this is his normal fashion. So when the Torah says that you have to pay kofar, if your animal is a mu'ay and he kills somebody, not only do you kill the animal, but you also have to pay kofar. Is that only by goring, which the pasuk says ki gachshor esisha if he gores, or is it even if he tramples? It's the same thing. There's a odilma Karen kavar slahasik. What's the characteristic of Karen, which is specific to Karen? Kavana to do damage. Shane, the animal is just trying to eat. He's hungry. Wants to get a nod. The characteristic is that he's doing something for his own pleasure. Regel is that's what he normally does. He just walks around. But by Karen, maybe there he has to pay kofar. The owner has to pay kofar, right? Because he has kavana. The animal's kavana to do damage. He's doing it intentionally. When he goes down with his head and uses those horns, he's trying to do damage, right? Hi, in kavana slahasik, but regel not. So here's our question: does the concept of kofar apply to regel? Good question. Tashmal, so I bring this proof. Listen carefully. You brought your shore into the chatzar of somebody else, the nizik shlo b'shus. V'nagcho lebalabayis, and he gored the balabayis. Umes, and the balabayis died. Hashor b'skila, the shore gets skilu ba'olav, and the owner bein tam bein muad misham kofar shalem. Whether he's a tam or a muad pays kofar shalem. Now let's understand something here. Here we're not talking about a case of regel. We're talking about he gored, like the pasuk said, he gored on purpose, and he killed the owner. The shore is killed, and the owner, whether it's a tam or a mu'aid, if the owner of the animal is a tam or a mu'aid, he pays kofar shalem. Where do you get the different Rav Tarfon? Rav Tarfon is the one who learned in our Mishnah, right? That Karen b'shus and Nizik pays the full amount. They had that kal v'chomer that the rabbis didn't like the kal v'chomer because they said dayo love menatin, and he said no, it would destroy the kal v'chomer, so I don't say dayo. Fine, okay, so that's Rav Tarfon. Tarfon says whether it's a tam or a mu'aid pays kofar shalem. Now kofar shalem b'tam l'Rav Tarfon minoli. Where does he get it from? How do you know that you pay kofar shalem? We understand nezek. We said chatzi nezek. Okay, what about the kofar shalem? Where does he get this kofar shalem from? B'tam l'Rav Tarfon minoli. Lab mishum the savik Rebbe say he goes like Rebbe say glili damer tam shalem chatzi kofar b'shus harabim. If an animal gored, an animal is a tam and gored b'shus harabim, right? Gored b'shus harabim. If he's a mu'aid, pays nezek shalem. If he gored and he's a tam, pays chatzi kofar. That's Rabbi Yosef Glili's shita. So Rav Tarfon holds like Rav Yossi Aglu, number one, that in Rosh Hashanah a tam would pay chatzi kofer, right? Chatzi kofer. Umaisile mikav chomer meregel, and then he learns out that you pay the whole amount kofer shalom b'shus hanizik a kal v'chomer regel the same way that he learned the kal v'chomer in our Mishnah. Now, what's the details of the kal v'chomer? Take a look in Rashi, way above where we are holding now. Rashi a little bit below the Tosas Divrei Maskul V'Yehei, the third Tosas on the Daf. Look even over there. Look over in Rashi. It's in the kal v'chomer regel. Ki'echid the gomer lekeren tam minyan the zaken dasis, and just like you learned keren tam in Rishus HaNizik, pays nezek shalem based on his kal v'chomer. Listen to this kal v'chomer. Ma shein b'regel sheptum Rishus Rab shein b'regel pat Rishus Rab legamrei. Rishus HaNizik kofer shalem. They pay kofer shalem. That's his kal v'chomer. Now wait a minute. Where do you get this business about that shein b'regel pays Rishus HaNizik kofer shalem? Kofer shalem. It's probably really going on regel because on shein, he doesn't normally. That's not normal to eat up a person. You kill somebody with a regel. You don't kill somebody with a shein, presumably, unless it was a wild animal and killed him with a shein, whatever. But let's assume. So he's saying over here, listen, Manach shein b'regel patris rabim, but your chayv Rishus HaNizik kofer shalem. Where did you get kofer shalem from? That's just because he held that you pay kofer shalem there. That regel also pays kofer shalem, which is our question. Does an animal that kills with regel, does he also pay kofer only with goring? It's mashma. So the Gemara is trying to see here that from this case you see that he paid kofer shalom because that's Rav Tarfon's kal v'chomer. What's his kal v'chomer? Mal shem regel pat Rishus Rabim. Rishus says he can pay kofer shalom. Karen Rishus Rabim he pay chatzi kofer because he also can v'esek lili. Certainly, right? Shem regel doesn't pay anything Rishus Rabim. Karen Rishus Rabim pays chatzi kofer. So if Shein Regel, which is Pat Rishus Rabim, pays kofer shalom b'shus hanizik, so Karen, which Rishus Rabim, pays chatzi kofer, basically, and Edin Rishus Hanizik should pay kofer shalom. Now, see the end of Rashi. Midagomer of Tarfon Hachi, since Rav Tarfon learns that kal v'chomer, alma ika kofer b'regel. Dilav Hachi, b'mamai said, what's this kal v'chomer over here? His kal v'chomer is Shein Regel, which Pat Rishus Rabim is chayiv kofer shalom b'shus hanizik. So Karen should certainly be chayiv Karen b'shus hanizik. But it's based on the fact that Shein Regel pays kofer b'shus hanizik. So that's the answer to our question. Our question is: does Regel b'shus hanizik, does it pay kofer shali? Does it pay kofer or not? Here it must be that he does. Regel, that's the kal v'chomer. Alma back in the Gemara. Alma ika kofer b'regel. So you see there is kofer b'regel. That's the answer to our question. Amar Rav Shimi ben Arar. So he first wants to deflect this and says, no, not necessarily so. Maybe he's not learning out from the kofer of regel. Again, was kal v'chomer was marshim, but chayv kofer shalom b'shus hanizik. So Karen, which is chayv chatzi kofer b'shus haram, should certainly pay kofer shalom b'shus. No, he's not learning out from kofer at all. Tanam it is zaken the regel ma'asila. Look at the next Rashi where we left off just a second ago. The next Rashi goes on. Ben zaken the regel ma'asila. Lo like a kofer b'regel. Regel there's no kofer. Kofer is only by Karen, Igor. Karen, which is B'shus Ram Chatzi Kofer, certainly, like basically, certainly should be Kofer Shalom, but we don't know that Regel is Chayiv in Kofer at all. He's just trying to learn out from Karen. Madach Regel, B'shus Ram is Potter, B'shus Anisik, Peis Nesik Shalom, Stam Regel, not Kofer. The kal v'chomer is such. Why Madach Regel b'shus Rabim is Potter? Bet b'shus Hanizik you pay Nesik Shalom. Karen which b'shus Rabim chetz kofer should certainly pay kofer Shalom b'shus Hanizik. So he says if that's your learning, and you're saying that kofer there is no kofer by Regel. He's just trying to say does Karen have kofer Shalom b'shus Hanizik? So Lifrach you can't ask it. You want to try to learn from the Zokin to kofer. From the Zokin to kofer, that's your kal v'chomer. Madach Regel is Potter b'shus Rabim by Nezikin. But your chayiv Nesik Shalom b'shus Hanizik. Kofer, which is Potter b'shus, pays half b'shus Rabim, but Karen certainly pays the Kofer Shalom b'shus Hanizik. So you're jumping from the Zikin to Kofer. Mana Zikin to Regel, Shkin Yesh Meish. By the Zikin of Regel of damages, there's also you have that by fire, where there's certainly no Kofer when it comes to Aish. We could talk about Kofer when it comes to Regel or Shane, in addition to goring to Karen, but there is no kofer there. So you want to kal v'chomer and say lich marach by the how of nizik. These are the rules, certainly by kofar. No, malazak and the regel shkin yeshbesh that has a chumrah. The same rules apply of nizikin, of nezik shalom applies by yesh. Okay, so learn mitamun. Remember, something is tamun if it's hidden. Eish and achayiv only chayiv on regel. You learn that from tamun. And Rashi says shet potter ba'eish. Here Rashi a little bit above where we are. Shet potter ba'eish. Remember, if you spread a fire and it burnt down the guy's stalk and he had cash underneath the stalk, you're not chayiv for that. Shet potter ba'eish v'chayiv b'regel. The tamun is chayiv b'regel. If your animal walks on something, he's chayiv even on tamun. My silachin, here's the Chomer says Rashi. Ma regel shebishus aram tura miklum chayvus bishus since they got through al taman nezik shalom. Karen shebishus chatzi kofer certainly should be chayav kofer shalom, but we're jumping from one to the other. So mal taman sheknesh babor. Taman has a and there is no chiyuv of kofer on tamun. So he said mal taman sheknesh babor. Taman has a chiyuv babor. Meaning, if something was hidden and fell into the bor yochayev, whereas there is no such thing when it comes to kofar. There's no kofar there by bor. So learn out mikalim. Okay, learn out from kalim. And what's the kalim? Potter b'asa bor. Potter bor is potter. If the kalim fell into the bor, mikalim the regel ma'isila. So again, madach what? Madach regel is potter b'shus rab. Yet if he breaks the kalim b'shus hanizik, you're chayiv nezik sholem. So kofar, which keren of kofar, which we pay chatzi kofar b'shus rabim, should certainly pay nezik sholei kofar sholem b'shus hanizik. That's your thing, but we don't know about regel. This is malakalim sheken yeshem be'esh. Kalim, there's a chomer that you have in fire, as opposed to kofar. There is no inyan of kofar reish. So mikalim tumunim. Okay, learn out from kalim which are hidden. Okay, so kalim tumunim, there's no esh there, right? And there's no bor there. And you say, learn it this way: Marach regel, which is potter, b'shus rabman keim tmunim, which is chayiv nesek shalom keim tmunim b'shus hanizik. So chatzi kofer, which is potter, Karen, which is pays chatzi kofer b'shus rabman, should certainly pay kofer shalom b'shus rabman. Mal keim tmunim sheyesh ba'adam. That's another kind of nesek. A person has to pay for keim tmunim. A person pay for any damage, as we said. Person's chayiv on any damage that he does, even if he did it by accident. Mal keim tmunim sheyesh ba'adam. Ella, since these we can't learn Salv Kofer. Ella, how do we know what is Rav Tarfon's Kav Chomer? We're back to the original way. Ella Shmamina Mikofer the Regel Maisila. He's learning from Kofer the Regel, the first Rashi that we learned inside. What's the first Rashi? The Rashi says, what's the Kav Chomer? Madach what? Madach Regel is Pat B'Shus Rabim. Yet you pay Kofer Shalom B'Shus Hanizik, right? Mashem Regel Sheptum B'Shus Rabim Legamri. B'Shus says that you pay Kofer Shalom. That's Tarfon's Kav Chomer. So Karen, which is Chatzi Kofer B'Shus Rabim, should certainly pay Kofer Shalom B'Shus Hanizik. But it's based on the fact that Regel pays Kofer Shalom B'Shus Hanizik. That's a given according to Tarfon. Shmamina Kofer the Regel Ma'isla Alma Ika Kofer Regel. So there's Kofer Regel Shmamina. So here's your proof at the end of the day so at the end of the day it must be that's his Kav Chomer, that there is Kofer by Regel, not only Kofer by goring, as opposed to shor nagachu and v'chiyigach shor ish, v'chiyigach shor es ish or es isha, but it applies to regel also because the same thing applies. Why? Because just like a shor nagach, a mu'eh, that's his normal thing. He gores. That's normal for him to do. The same thing is normal for an animal to trample on a baby or on a person. That's normal for him to do that, and therefore he'd also pay kofar.
Doesn't regel then become Karen?
No, because regel is automatically from the beginning it doesn't need tam. Doesn't need tam. And also, it's normal for him to do that, but it doesn't mean he's intentionally doing it. Karen has the characteristic that if the animal is doing it intentionally, and it's not normal for him to damage intentionally, he does it 3 times, then we can establish him as a mu'id for the future. Whereas regel is something he just damages by walking along. And the point, that's his normal fashion. If if he did it 3 times, then it's his normal fashion. It's his normal fashion to do it intentionally. But he still has that difference between regel and Karen that one's intentional is not.
Certain situations where that Karen becomes the sort of the no.
The same halacha would apply, yeah.
Not necessarily boring. I mean, it could be other things as well that.
Right, pushing and stuff like that. Yeah,
I thought of it because Rashi mentioned Shane as well.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
No, for an animal to do that, unless it's unless he's doing it for his pleasure, like he's eating something for his pleasure, right? Otherwise, Shane could just be mentioned agavurcha. because the real question is from regel. That's what we're talking about. The question was not iboilu regel shadar slagavitinek or an animal shane or he ate the baby.
So it has to be sort of accidental.
Right. So it has to be where he does it with his regel, not on purpose, but that's his normal thing to walk on thing. He's going to walk. Animal walks and he stops and he tramples on whatever's there. Right, kicking. That's Karen. That's Karen. Correct. This is if he does it in the normal fashion. This is what he does normally. Right. Didn't do it. Kicking becomes Karen. Yeah.
We had cases where the person who has wild animals.
Yeah.
Beats the lion.
That's right.
Okay, so Shane would be regular.
It could be. Shane would be. Yeah. In a case like that, yeah. In a case like that, then it would be. But he's a muad for that. Correct. But the Gemara says, so would he pay kofar? So would he pay kofar? So would you? The question is, would you apply this idea of paying kofar to Shane in that case? The Gemara doesn't say that though. The Gemara is like about regular.
It's not Shane anymore. It would be Karen for a lion.
Yeah,
because that's how a lion attacks. Lion doesn't have horns.
Right. No, but I'm saying, the characteristic of Shane is that he's eating for his pleasure.
Right.
So if he's eating for his pleasure because he's hungry, then it would be Shane. Right. But if he's eating because that's his normal idea to be, to be wild, then it would be like Karen. Yeah. Right. The Gemara now adds on. That we've established now that there's kofar by regel when an animal that's a mu'ed, as according to Rav Tarfon, even a tam would pay presumably kofar shalim. That was his kal v'chomer. But according to us, that there is kofar regel, even though it's based on Rav Tarfon's kal v'chomer, we don't hold like Rav Tarfon, but Rav Tarfon's kal v'chomer was based on that there is kofar by regel, and that presumably everybody agrees on. And he says the mistabedi kofar regel. These like the chaleka. If there's no kofar regel, the tonamin is zaken the regel ma'isla, and his kal v'chomer was the second kal v'chomer, not from the kofar of regel, but from regel itself. So if Rahman zaken the regel, she can't from regel. So you can ask how can you learn from the zaken regel because there is that by regel. Whereas if you say there is no kofar by regel, so you could say how can you learn a kal v'chomer from regel to kofar? Malan zaken the regel sheyesh and regel. There is no kofar by regel. So it would be self-defeating. How can you say a kal v'chomer from the zaken of regel? We said learn the kal v'chomer not from the kofar, but from the zaken of regel. Madach regel, which is patrush rabim, is chayiv nezek shalom b'shus hanizik. So chatzi kofar, Karen of chatzi kofar, which is chayiv chatzi kofar b'shus harabim, would certainly be chayiv kofar shalom b'shus hanizik. Right. So if you're saying though, you look at that, why do you say you can't learn from the zaken to kofar? Because the man zaken the regel, she can yeshem b'regel. Because the zaken of regel applies by regel. We said it applies by, it's applied by Aish, it's applied by boards, it's applied by Taman. If the zaken of regel is your kal v'chomer, in the zaken regel, that the zaken regel applies by regel, whereas kofar does not. If you're saying kofar doesn't work, Allah shmamina, the kofar to regel must be that there is kofar by regel, and therefore you don't slug it up that way. My kofar to regel ma'isla alma ika kofar regel shmamina. So that's how we come out that there is kofar by regel, because that's his normal thing to do it that way, even though he doesn't have intention. Adam Mu'elam says the mission. Adam is always considered more. He's always considered forewarned. You're alive. You're forewarned. Adam Mu'elam bein shogeg bein b'meisid. Whether he did it unintentionally or he did it intentionally, bein erben yeshua, whether he's awake or asleep. In other words, if you do damage, you're sleeping, let's say, and you stretch your legs and you broke something, you're chayav for that. Unless the guy put it there after you fell asleep and put it, and then it was his fault. But basically, you're always chayav. Let's say you knocked out your friend's eye, when you broke kalim, clothing, vessels, whatever. Misham nezek sham pays the full amount. Now, what's this idea over here of simas ein chaver v'shibras misham nezek shalom? What's the point there? So the Gemara says there's a point to tell you that tani simas ein chaver do me shibras akem, just like breaking kalim. Mahosam nezek ein avar lo. Just when it comes to kalim, there is no tsari pushevas and boshes. We're not talking about a human being. You broke somebody's vessels. You pay for your damage. You pay for what they're worth now. They're worth almost nothing now. That's what you pay for. You pay nezek. So the same way there, if you accidentally knocked out somebody's eye, nezek ain't arbitvarm low. This is because the arbitvarm that we talk about, is only when you did it on purpose, or Rashi says karov lamezid. You did it, almost on purpose. I mean, you're fighting. You expect maybe you didn't need to do it, but if you're fighting somebody and punching him, that's already considered carb lamazit. Maybe you didn't intentionally say, I'm going to get this eye and not that eye, but you were trying to break his nose and break his head. That's carb lamazit, and then you pay all four things, in addition to, of course, the nezek. Because that's the point. How do we know that you're chayiv on nezek, even b'shogeg? How do we know that? Maybe you only chayiv did it on purpose, like the four things. How do you know you're chayiv on nezek, even b'shogeg? Pasuk says petza tachas patza. Again, the same parsha. Ayin tachas ayin, shein tachas shein. The Gemara learns out the kfiyah and the other ones for other drushes, as we'll see later on, being chabura. But he says petza tachas patza, wound, place when l'chayva l'shog k'meisa. Tell me that you're chayiv either way. Those words are extra. Just say you're chayiv for your damages. Why petza tachas patza? Tell me you're chayiv on everything. Shog k'meisa. V'ala onis karatzam. Even by accident, you paid it. You had an accident. You're chayiv, right? There was a car accident. It wasn't, it was an accident. You have to pay. You might think that maybe we need this pasuk of petza tachas patza to teach me that you have to pay for tsar even makom nesek. You might think, where do you pay tsar? If, for example, you burnt his fingernail, where there's no loss to him, there's no he's not devaluated in any way, it doesn't affect his work or anything like that. So maybe there you pay for tsar, since there's no nezek, there's no depreciation in the person. Maybe there, mashma no. Petz tachas patza, that you pay for tsar, even when there is nezek, you also pay for tsar. For it has to be evaluated what his pain was. So we need it. You can't look for petza, but patza. My tachas petza, that word extra, tachas is extra, teaches shema minatar. You see both things from here. Number one, you see that you pay tsar even when there's nezek, even when you're paying for depreciation, you must pay tsar in addition to that. And also teaching that you're paying b'shogeg just as well as meza and only skaratza. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba. Let's say a man fell asleep, and let's just say the example, he fell asleep or he forgot that he had a big rock sitting on his chest. He was just sitting on his chest, he was saving it for something. Okay? He didn't even know about it. Maybe somebody put it on there, saved it for him, said, if you find any big rocks, leave it for me on my chest while I'm sleeping. Somebody put it there, but Amadi got up enough and it fell off, and it did damage to somebody or some things. Lenyan is zaken chayiv. You chayiv to pay, even though it was an accident, because you're the one who actually, when you're getting up, moved it along. Chayiv nezik dafkin and shogeg k'meizan on skuratzon. Okay. Lenyan arba dvar potter. You paid sorry b'shefs aboshes. Let's say that rock now, you got up and it went flying on another person, so you have to pay for damages, but you don't pay for sorry b'shefs aboshes because you certainly didn't intend to hurt him in any way. You didn't even intend to do this at all. It fell off your chest. In Shabbos, what happens if when you got up, it went flying or flew off from your potter, you had no intention of doing malacha. You're chayav on Shabbos b'shogeg a carbon. Not talking about you do it amazing, chayav misa or kares if there's no Edom Asra, but on Shabbos, you only chayiv even a carbon when you tend to do malacha. You forgot that it was Shabbos, you forgot that there was some malacha, but you intended to do something here, you didn't intend it. Linyan Gullus, let's say you killed somebody, b'shogeg, with this rock, when you got up. Potter, right? You're potter, why? Because the Gabi Gullus says, Maka nefesh b'shgoga. Rashi says, he didn't even know he had the rock. He just got out of bed. He got out of bed and then the thing fell off. He didn't even know that he had it. If he had it, he knew about it, he forgot about it, that's already shogeg. But here it's totally accident. He had no connection to it whatsoever. So the goes potter. The Indian evet. What happens if he knocked out the tooth or an eye of an evet? The rule of evet kanani is if you knock out his two or eye, he goes out free. So what happens if you got up, this rock flew off your chest as you got up, and you knocked out the tooth or the eye of an evet? Then yet evet, this also applies to other parts of the body, but the oraisa, the fairish ones are tooth and eye. There's other 24 Rashi Evarim that could be included also, but talk about the tooth and the eye. Then you have a plikut of Shimon it's machlek Shimon Rabbanan. They're telling you had this many places before. Hooray, Shaya Rabbo, the evet's master was a rofe, was a surgeon, let's call him in those days. V'amarlo kachol einai, would you do me a favor and paint my eye? The evet had a bad eye, and he said paint it with some salve or whatever. The Simon, by mistake, he blinded him. The doctor, his master, blinded him. Or Chatoli Shini, can you scrape my tooth? The Hikul and knocked out the tooth. When he scraped it, was about to fall out anyway. Sichik ba'adam. So the Tanakama over here says, you know what? He can laugh at his master because he knocked out his eye. He knocked out his tooth, even though he didn't mean to do it, but he did it. So according to the Tanakama, he would go out free because you knocked out the tooth of the other with this stone that knocked off your chest. You did it. You had to have intention. You had intent to destroy. You had to have intention to knock out his tooth or his eye. Otherwise, he doesn't go out free. So that's a machlokas Shmuel and the Rabbanan. Okay. Second case, Hikirba. Let's say not that he didn't know about the rock at all, sitting on his chest, the stone. The first case was he didn't know at all. So he's chayav for Nezikin, but he's potter basically for everything else, right? Except for knocking out the tooth there, but that's a machlokas according to Rabbanan. Rabbanan say he would go after Shmuel says no, you have intention. Okay. What about he knew about the stone, he forgot about it. Hikr Baba Shach, he forgot about it. He got it again, then Nezikin in front of Zakin, you're chayiv. He did damage even by accident. Even Dal Varm Potzer, because we said for Dal Varm you have to have a kavanah of Mazid or a kar of Mazid. Linyan Gullus, it goes and goes chayiv. Damakra Bishkaga. If he kills somebody with it, he goes into he killed him bishkaga. He was a shogeg. Here he knew about it and he forgot about it. That's what we call a shogeg. I'm calling a shogeg. Mechal Havli Idea. He forgot about it. You know, it was inadvertent, unintentional. He forgot about it. Smash, but there was the idea, but and here there was the idea. Lenyan Shabbos. What about on Shabbos if he cares something? Again, Potter. Why? Here he had no intention to move the stone to throw it Dalad Amos Bishas Rabin. Right? Lenyan Eved. What about an Eved if he knocked out the tooth? The same achlokas. Put to Shmuel Rabbanan. Can you laugh at Rabbanan say, well, he knocked out the tooth. We don't care if he had kavanah or not. You need kavanah. Here he didn't have kavanah. Okay, what about now? This stone did not just fall off him by accident without him knowing about it, or he knew about it and he forgot, but rather he wanted to throw the stone. He wanted to throw it 2 meters or 2 amos. And had it landed 2 amos, no harm would have happened. But he threw it 4 amos instead. He didn't know his own strength. He threw it 4 amos. And by that he damaged somebody. Linyan Nezakin for the Zikin your chayiv anyway. You did damage. Linyan Dal Varm Potter because he had no intention to throw it Dal and Amos and hurt that person. If the person, let's say, was standing at 4 amos and he wanted to throw it to us. Linyan Shabbos again. There's no machzak Shabbos. He had no intention to throw it Dal and Amos. So he had no kavanah to do any malacha, even not knowing that it was Shabbos and not knowing that it was a malacha. He didn't do a malacha. Lenyan Gullus, what about Gullus? So here we get to a complicated one. The pasuk says, Asher lo tzada. When you go into Gullus, when you accidentally kill somebody, we call it accidentally, unintentionally, but you were not lying in ambush. You know, you weren't ambushing the guy. Rachmana. So it's as opposed to this case where you weren't actually doing that. So Rashi has 2 interpretations here. Lenyan Gullus, the first interpretation, we'll take it to Rashi right even where we are here. Lenyan Gullus, chayiv, he says. If you had no intention, but some people makom. Partner miskapim is rukshtaim v'zarik arba she'enu b'toras v'chiyazid v'chiyazid. It's not like being chiyazid ish. El b'toras v'samti l'chamakom. So according to the first he says, yeah, this fits into the category of you weren't ambushing him and you wanted to kill him, and you did kill the guy because instead of 2, you threw it 4, and you didn't intend to. That's the case. You go into Golas. Lishnachrina Rashi says the opposite. You had no intention to throw it at all. Etzlo, Jonas. In other words, when you go into Golas, where you had no intention to kill him at all, you fell off the ladder or whatever. You didn't even have intention to throw it. You had no intention to do any action whatsoever relating to killing this guy. Here, though, you did something. You threw something. You should have been more careful. You could have thrown it 2. You should have thrown it 2, and you threw it 4, indicating that this is more than shogeg. See, shogeg of Golas is what? Shogeg is a very specific case. You weren't even intending to kill the guy. You weren't intending to do anything. It just like happened. It was almost like an accident. Huh? But you did an action. Action. But over here, you were doing an action. You were throwing something. You should have been more careful. That's what he's...
Actually, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a kavanah of some sort.
Again, no. He had a kavanah of some sort.
Chop the tree, but
To chop the tree, but the top fell off and killed
That's
somebody.
the-
He did an action, but he didn't do an action that related directly to this guy. It flew off. It was in common law, you'd call it an accident. It was an accident, right? It wasn't like it wasn't like the actor who shot the gun. He didn't know that it was a live gun. That's a little bit more, right? That's would be more like this case, right? The case with the axe, okay, the Gemara does talk in Makkas about how you have to be, it has to be on your downward, not upward, and all that. But that was more of an accident. This wasn't, he intended to throw the rock. It just went a little bit further. He didn't know that it was a live bullet in there, whatever. So that's what he says. The potamigola, sochimash b'shalot tzad shalot skaven l'tzadol izrog etzlo. He can go. Giannis, if he didn't know kavanah to throw anything near this guy, then he can go into golas. Like you say, he had no kavanah to throw anything towards this guy at all. But over here, this guy did something. He threw something towards that guy. He shot the gun, and it's towards that guy, and therefore this would be. He'd be excluded, as he wouldn't have the safety, he wouldn't have the refuge of the city of refuge. He wouldn't go into Golas, which is a protection for him. And then as it wouldn't be a protection for him, he doesn't go into Golas. Golas not being a punishment over here, but Golas being a refuge for this man. All right, finally, okay. Le'inyan Eved. What about an Eved? Again, if you wanted to throw it 2 and it went 4 and it knocked out the tooth or the eye, the Eved put the Shemuli roll and say machlokes we had before. Let's say he wanted to throw it 4 amas and it went 8 amas. Now, again, for what's the difference here? We'll see. Linyan Zakin Chayiv, Linyan Dal Barm Potter, the same thing. It doesn't make a difference 2 to 4, 4 to 8. Linyan Shabbos could make a difference. Why? Because he wanted to throw a Dal and Amas. Dal Amas Rabim is a Mlechas Machshavas. So if he says he didn't care really, he didn't care where it would fall, but he wanted to throw it at least 4. So then he'd be Chayiv. Elo, if he didn't want it to go there, and he didn't mean to do that in Melacha at all, then it's not Melacha Mashevas because he didn't mean to do that. He didn't mean to throw there at all. He didn't want to. He wanted to throw it. 4 and it went 8. He didn't want to do that. So that's not Melacha Mashevas. Even he did a Melacha, but if he didn't mean to do it, Rashi says. Because he didn't do a Melacha at all. So over here, the difficult thing is if he threw it 8, he didn't mean to do that. So therefore, he's part of Shabbos. Leaning Golas, again, Ashalot Sada, Pratna Skavan, Lizragava, Vazarik, Shmona. This would be the same 2 opinions in Rashi, whether you're Potter, whether you're Chayav. Leaning Evet, Plutiv Shemuyel Rabbanan. Same. So Gabe would be the same Machlokes from Shemuyel Rabbanan, whether the Evet tricked the master into knocking out his eye or tooth to get his freedom. According to the Rabbanan, that would work. He goes out free. Shemuyel would not because he had no intention to do it. Amarabba. Another thing that he said, Zorak Kli, right? So we had these, we started this, was it Rabbah? Yeah, Rabbah. Now another thing that Rabbah said, Rabbah, Zorak Kli Rosh Hagag. We had this case before. A man threw a Kli from the top of a roof, and Rashi says it could even be the owner. The owner threw it down. He wanted to throw it out, whatever, he threw it down. Another guy came and shoved a makol, another guy came and hit it with his bat. Remember, golf club or bat and hit it, broke it. Potter, the guy who broke it is Potter. My time, he broke a broken thing. It was already considered broken because it was about to hit the ground, it was going to break anyway. And he's Potter. The Amarabba, Zara Kli Marosh Agag says, let's say somebody went up and stole somebody's Kli. Somebody's had an earthenware vessel, let's say, or glass or whatever, and on top of a roof. And the man threw it down, but where he threw it down, there were pillows and blankets that it wouldn't have broken. In other words, he threw it down in a place with foam or whatever, it wouldn't have broken. And then another guy came, and by the time it hit the ground, he removed the cushions and the pillows. Or he himself went down. He himself got there before it landed on the ground and took them away. He wasn't that far away. Let's assume he wasn't 10 stories up. He was right there. He's part of my time because when he threw it, his arrow, so to speak, has already been depleted. In other words, it's been depleted because when he threw it, he didn't do an action that would have broken them. So you see, the key when you're chayiv on something is not when it actually breaks. It's based on the action that you did. You did something that could break. But if you did something that wasn't going to do damage, you threw it down on a cushion, it wasn't going to break anyway. And then even if you took away the cushion afterwards, so that's a grumma, Rashi says, that's a grumma to you're a government because you caused it to happen, but you didn't do it directly. Your action of throwing it down would not have broken it. The Omer Rav, another thing, Zorak Tinik Meroshagal Rachmos, a person threw a baby from the top of a roof. Another man came with a sword and killed the baby before it hit the ground. If the person with the sword is chayiv or not. The Tanya Koa or Bnei Adam, let's say 10 people beat this guy to death. Basar Maklas, they all had 10 sticks they beat him. Whether they beat him simultaneously or one after another, consecutively, not simultaneously. Kulam Patorin says the Tanakama. Why? Because they all contributed to his death and no one person killed him. The meaning Shiak Kol Nefesh Adam, Kol Nefesh, Dein Kamak Kol Nefesh, says Rashi. He didn't kill the whole person. Uptur Mimisa, of course they'd have to pay damages, etc., like that, but Uptur Mimisa. Rabbi Yehuda said, Yehuda says no. If they did it simultaneously, you're right. You can't prove who killed them. You don't have multiple people killing him. You can't do that. So, but if it's the last guy is chayiv because he finished him off. He was the one who hastened his death. He hastened his death. So, what do we see over here? That would be a machlokas here, whether the guy with the sword killed the baby. According to Rabbanan, no. The first guy who threw the baby down is also chayiv, right? It also had partook in it, and neither one would be chayiv for Misa because the guy who threw him down could say he didn't die with through my power. He died through the guy with the sword. According to Rav Meir, so the last guy killed him, even though he was on his way to death anyway. The last guy's the one who actually killed him. What about the next case? We'll see this case tomorrow. Bashor bekiblo bekarna. What happens if the baby was thrown down and a shore gored him and that killed him? Then we'll see another machlokas. That's a different machlokas, and we'll see that case tomorrow. Mitzvah. Have a good day, everybody. Rumi Basuras Tovas.
Amen.
Getting up tomorrow morning, your time, right?
Yes,
Tuesday.
tomorrow morning. Yeah. And Mazel Tov with a bris. It was the same day. It was really.
Shmuel Elia.
Shmuel Elia, very good. Yeah.
You were at the bris. You went to the bris.
Yes.
Very nice. Yeah, Barbara did it. I understand it very.
Yeah,
nice.
Barbara did it. She was actually out and singing people, so it was nice.
Very nice.
Just don't wait until